Hello there, and welcome back to the Mad Human channel. It's so good to have you here again. Or if this is your first time, welcome to a space where curiosity drifts slowly, and every question is allowed to echo for a while. Tonight, we're diving into something ancient, something vast, something that moves beneath your feet even as you sleep, the sea. And more importantly, what moves it? The moon, that quiet, glowing companion in the sky. Have you ever just looked up at it and felt like it was staring back? Not judging, not answering, just watching, as it always has. Tonight's story is about the quiet connection between the moon and the oceans. A pull so gentle you'd barely notice it, and yet so powerful it shapes the rhythm of our entire planet. It's a story of gravity, of time, of cycles older than civilization itself. But before we begin, where are you watching from tonight? What time is it where you are? Let me know in the comments. It's always beautiful to see people joining from all corners of the world, all under the same moonlight. And if you find tonight's journey soothing or fascinating, consider giving this video a gentle like or subscribing, so you'll always have a quiet place to return to when the world feels a little too loud. Now, breathe in slowly. Feel your shoulders soften. Outside your window, somewhere out there, the ocean is rising. And the moon is calling. Let's begin. The sea has always sung to us, sometimes with crashing waves, sometimes with a hush so still you could forget it's alive. But beneath that surface, there's movement, eternal, ceaseless, like the slow breathing of a living world. And that breath, though it belongs to the earth, is pulled, shaped, guided by a partner in the sky. The moon doesn't speak. It doesn't shine with its own light. It doesn't chase storms or roar with thunder, but it moves water not by force, by presence. It tugs not like a hand but like a memory, a whisper, a dream the sea cannot forget. Have you ever felt moved by something you couldn't see? Have you ever changed direction just because something called you softly from a distance? That's what the moon does. And tonight we're going to follow that call. It begins with gravity, not the sharp fall to the ground kind, but the kind that stretches across space like invisible threads. The moon's gravity reaches the earth, and though it's so far away, it manages to lift the oceans, just a little. That little lift becomes a rhythm, the tide. Twice a day, the sea rises and falls, like the earth exhaling in sync with its silent neighbor. Imagine it, entire oceans, billions of tons of water, moving because of something so quiet it barely seems real. But real it is. The moon pulls water toward it, creating a bulge, high tide, on the side of Earth facing the moon. But oddly, there's also a high tide on the opposite side. Why? Because while the moon pulls the Earth's water toward it, it also pulls the Earth's center more than it pulls the far ocean. That difference creates another bulge. Two tides, one cause. Isn't that beautiful? But it doesn't stop there. The sun plays its part too. When the sun and moon align, during full moons and new moons, they work together, creating the strongest tides, spring tides. And when they're at right angles, their pulls compete, softening the tides. These are neap tides, a dance of alignment and resistance. Can you feel it? The tension and release, the lunar tug-of-war with our oceans, played out over millions of years. It's not just physics, it's poetry, a planetary duet, heard not with ears, but with waves. The moon's influence reaches every shore. From the mighty Pacific to the smallest tidal pool, its pull sculpts coastlines, stirs nutrients, governs the rhythms of marine life. Crabs mate by the moon. Coral reefs spawn in sync with lunar cycles. Even some fish know when to travel, not by the stars but by the tides. Life listens. Life adjusts. Life remembers. You watching this now, have you ever walked a beach during a full moon? Have you seen the tides stretched far and wide, as if the sea itself is reaching for the sky? Maybe next time you do, you'll remember this pull, this quiet bond between two worlds. There's more. The moon is slowly drifting away from us, about 3.8 centimeters per year. Tiny, but over millions of years it adds up. That means tides were once stronger, days were shorter, and in the deep future, tides will be weaker, days longer. Time itself is changing, shaped by this slow cosmic retreat. Isn't it strange to think that one day, Earth's oceans won't move quite the same way? That the moon, though still there, won't stir the water as deeply? Even the rhythms we thought eternal are gently shifting. Just like us. Let's pause for a moment. Take a breath. Let it out slowly. If you're lying in bed right now, listening to this, think about the water in your body. Over half of you is water, and how, in some minuscule way, even you are being pulled by the moon. Isn't that wild? That we are, quite literally, lunar creatures. Not just spiritually, not just poetically, physically. You are moved by the moon. Some ancient cultures knew this instinctively. They worshipped the moon not for its light, but for its power. The Greeks had Selene. The Hindus had Chandra. The Egyptians, Khonsu. All different names for the same truth. The moon is more than a rock in space. It's a rhythm keeper, a reminder, a witness, and for many, a mystery. We looked up, saw the tides, saw the moon, and felt the connection long before we understood gravity. Sometimes the heart knows before the brain does. Have you ever wondered what the moon would say if it could speak? What stories it might tell, watching the oceans move, the continents drift, the creatures rise and fall? What secrets are held in the moonlight glinting off the tide at midnight? Maybe it's telling us, always, that even the smallest presence can move great things. That gentleness is not weakness. That distance doesn't mean disconnection. The tide goes in. The tide goes out. We mark time by it. We build harbors for it. We fish by it. We dream by it. The moon gives the sea its rhythm, and the sea gives life its shape. Even humans are guided by tides. In our earliest cities, we watched the water rise and fall and planned our lives around it. The word lunatic comes from luna, the moon, because we believed it had the power to affect minds. Maybe it still does. Maybe there's something in you that softens under moonlight. A memory, a longing, a breath that deepens just a little when you look up at that silver circle in the sky. And all of this from a moon that doesn't shine on its own. It only reflects the light of the sun. Just like the sea reflects the moon. Just like you reflect the universe around you. A mirror in a mirror in a mirror. A pull within a pull. You, the sea, the moon, all connected, all responding to one another in quiet cosmic ways. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat with the moon? Not glanced at it through a window, not walked past it. I mean really sat with it, felt its pull. Noticed the tide in your own breath. Would you try that sometime this week? Just a few minutes of silence with the night sky. Let the rhythm return. Let the quiet in. There's a quiet truth that lives in the rhythm of tides. Something unspoken, something ancient, like the heartbeat of the planet itself. And the more we listen, the more we begin to understand that this pull between moon and ocean isn't just science. It's storytelling. It's memory. It's the earth remembering how to sway. Picture it now. The moon drifting overhead, slow and constant, casting its silver gaze down on the rolling curves of the sea. Imagine the waves lifting in reply, not frantically, but softly, as if answering a familiar question. This is what it's always been. A call, a response, the simplest form of conversation. And isn't that something we all crave? To be gently pulled by something greater than ourselves. To be seen. To be moved. Even the shape of the coastline whispers this truth. Bays and estuaries are sculpted over millennia by the rise and fall of tides. The moon's influence is etched into the map of our world. And not just the land, our language too. Words like ebb and flow carry the memory of this lunar conversation. We say we feel tides of emotion, or that things are tidal in nature. It's because somewhere deep inside we recognize this movement. We are made of oceans, after all. The pull of the moon isn't foreign. It's familiar. It lives in us. Can you feel that even now as you lie still listening? That distant lull, not just in the sea, but in your own blood? Long ago, when Earth was younger and spinning faster, days were shorter, and the moon was closer. The tides stronger. Imagine that, a wilder world. Oceans pulled higher and more fiercely. Landscapes reshaped daily by massive flows. The moon has since drifted away. Slowly, like a friend walking backward through time. But it still looks back at us. Still pulls, just more gently now. And even that shift from force to finesse carries a lesson. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it simply stays. Have you ever known someone whose presence changed you, even when they said nothing at all? In the stillness between tides, life waits. Along the shore, creatures have evolved to live with this constant movement. Sand crabs time their diggings with the moon. Sea turtles lay their eggs by lunar light. Even plankton rise and fall in the ocean's depths following moon-driven cues. There's choreography in the chaos. Nature listens, and the moon, patient, distant, dependable, becomes its conductor. And what about us? Do we listen? Or have we grown too loud inside our own heads to hear these subtle rhythms? Let me ask you, when was the last time you felt truly in sync with nature? Not just admiring it, but moving with it, like the tides? Maybe it's time to return to that. Not through effort, but through softness. The kind of softness the moon teaches.
No shouting. No hurry.
Just presence. Just gravity. Throughout human history, water has been sacred. Rituals have been tied to the tide. In ancient Japan, the Shinto tradition holds certain beaches as spiritual gateways, places where sea and sky meet, blessed by the moon's glow. In Celtic lore, the moon and the ocean were seen as mirrors of each other, ever-changing, yet eternal. In many indigenous cultures, the ocean is alive, aware, and deeply responsive to lunar energy. These stories may differ, but they share a truth. The moon and the sea are not separate. They are partners, and the space between them, that invisible pull, is where the magic lives. And still, in all our science and understanding, we cannot fully explain why it feels the way it does. Why a full moon over water makes our hearts ache a little. Why certain nights make us restless. Why dreams come heavier when the tide is high. Maybe it's memory. Maybe it's biology. Maybe it's both. Or maybe it's something we haven't named yet. A tide in the soul, drawn not by logic, but by longing. Right now, as you listen, tides are moving somewhere. On the other side of the world, water is climbing stone steps. In a quiet cove, a small fish turns with the current. In a tidal marsh, silt stirs. These are not loud events, but they are constant. And constancy is a kind of love, isn't it? Presence that does not leave. The moon doesn't change its course. It shows up, night after night, quietly shaping the edges of the earth. Would you like to be more like that, not dramatic but dependable? Not forceful but transformative? There's something tender in that idea. That maybe we're not here to crash through the world, but to pull gently at it. To move it with presence, with stillness, with gravity of our own. You're part of that gravity, you know. Every small kindness, every pause to listen, every soft gaze upward. It's all part of the rhythm. The world doesn't just turn because of big forces. It turns because of little pulls, like the moon on the sea, and maybe you on someone else's heart. Let me ask you again, softly. Where are you watching from? What is the tide like where you are? Do you hear the sea nearby? Or is it only in your memory? Either way, it's part of you. The ocean doesn't ask for attention, but it's always there. And the moon, so far away, keeps singing to it, and to us. A lullaby of gravity, a song of soft pull, a promise that even in the vastness of space, connection is possible. Even astronauts, floating in space, can see Earth's tides from above, that rise and fall, that constant shifting of blue. They speak of how beautiful it looks, like the Earth is breathing, and maybe that's exactly what it's doing. Maybe the sea is the Earth's breath, and the moon is its rhythm. Imagine that next time you look up. Imagine the breath beneath your feet. We often think of space as cold and lonely, but the moon reminds us that even in silence, there can be relationship. Even in distance, there can be touch. That's what tides teach us. Not just about oceans, but about emotion. About the slow pull of love, of memory, of time. They teach us that what matters most is not how fast something moves, but how deeply it does. And so here we are on this quiet night, just you, the sea, and that familiar glowing shape in the sky. No matter what has changed in your life, no matter what you've lost or gained, the moon still rises. The tide still comes in. The ocean still bows to its silent twin in the sky. There's comfort in that, isn't there? A rhythm we can trust. A pull we can lean into. Breathe with it now. In and out. Let go of the noise. Let go of the rush. Let the moon have its moment. Let the sea rise. Somewhere, deep in the ocean, far beneath the waves, creatures rise and fall in patterns they don't question. Microscopic organisms known as zooplankton, in one of the largest daily migrations on Earth, drift upward when the moonlight dims and downward when it returns. They've been doing this long before we ever named the moon, and they'll continue long after we're gone. Their dance is not conscious, but it's perfectly timed, tuned to the faintest cues. A soft light, a gentle pull. We like to think intelligence is awareness, but perhaps real intelligence is trust, a quiet alignment with the deeper rhythms of the world. Can you feel that rhythm in yourself? In your sleep cycles, in your moods, in the strange calm that sometimes settles over you under a full moon? Maybe you're not imagining it. Maybe your body is simply listening. The sea listens too. When the moon is closest to Earth, a position called perigee, tides rise higher than usual. When it is farthest, at apogee, they are gentler. This constant variation, subtle yet immense, reminds us that even predictable cycles are full of nuance. The sea is not a machine. It breathes. It remembers. It responds. And you, in your own way, do too. Perhaps that's why so many of us feel drawn to the coast, even if we've never lived near water. Something ancient in us remembers that first rhythm, the rise and fall of salt and moonlight. The very first creatures emerged from the sea, pulled toward land by instinct and sunlight, but perhaps it was the moon that gave them rhythm. A slow drummer behind the scenes. Some nights, the moon is so bright it casts shadows. Other nights, it's just a sliver, barely there. And yet, its pull never stops. That's something worth remembering. That even when we seem small or dim or far away, our presence still matters. We still affect the world around us. So if tonight you're feeling quiet, unnoticed, or distant, know that you're still pulling tides. You're still shaping the shores of someone's experience, whether you see it or not. Have you ever considered how many lives you've touched without realizing? A glance, a kindness, a word offered at just the right time. We're all moons to someone. And just as the moon shapes the tide shapes the earth. Over millennia, tidal forces have sculpted coastlines, eroded rocks into sea arches and caves, shifted sandbars, and created wetlands teeming with life. These aren't random accidents. They are the moon's signature written across the planet's edge. Each cove, each bay, each jagged cliff kissed by the sea was once designed by gravity, by repetition, by patience. There's something sacred in that kind of slow change. It tells us we don't need to hurry to be powerful. We don't need to shout to leave a mark. We can shape our world by simply showing up, again and again, like the tide. Quiet, steady, enduring. And what of the people who have lived by the sea for generations? Fishermen who time their nets with the tides, children who learn the rhythm of the waves before they learn to write, families who pass down stories of moonlit floods and harvests by the shore. Their lives are measured not by clocks, but by motion, by the push and pull. There's a kind of wisdom in living that way, not resisting the rhythm, but moving with it. We've built bridges, ports, cities, and calendars around the tides. But underneath all our structure, the pulse of the moon remains, unchanged. Let me ask you, when was the last time you felt at peace with change? Not just accepted it, but floated with it, like driftwood carried by the tide? The moon doesn't resist the Earth's pull, and the Earth doesn't resist the moon's. They spin together, bound but free. Maybe we could learn something from that, about how to love, how to grow, how to let go. Because change, like the tide, will come whether we want it to or not. And maybe it's not something to fight. Maybe it's something to rise with. There's a strange beauty in how the moonlight hits the sea. It doesn't just reflect. It shimmers. It dances. Even the water seems to know it's being seen. If you've ever watched the moonlight on waves and felt a sudden ache in your chest, a mix of wonder and sadness, you're not alone. That feeling has a name in some languages. In Portuguese, saudade, a longing for something that maybe never was. In Japanese, natsukashi, the sweet pain of remembering. The moon brings those feelings to the surface like it brings the tide. Memory, like water, is drawn by gravity too. And speaking of memory, do you know how long humans have followed the moon to tell time? Long before clocks or calendars, ancient people tracked lunar phases to know when to plant, when to fish, when to rest. The word month comes from moon. Lunar calendars were once the heartbeat of civilization. We lived by the sky, but somewhere along the way we forgot. We made our time rigid. We stopped looking up. Maybe it's time to look up again. Not to control the tide, but to remember that we're part of something vast, cyclical, and beautiful. That the world breathes and we're meant to breathe with it. If your life has felt chaotic lately, if the days blur into nights and the nights are sleepless, try aligning yourself to something ancient. Watch the moon. Learn its phases. Feel the tides. They will not solve your problems, but they may soften your restlessness. They may remind you that you are not a machine. You are a body of water, and water isn't meant to be still. It moves, it rises, it falls, and that is okay. Even the earth itself, beneath its crust, bulges and bends ever so slightly under the moon's pull. It's called the earth tide. We don't feel it directly, but it's there. The entire planet sways. Isn't that humbling? That nothing is too big to be moved. Not even Earth. And maybe not even you. No matter how solid you feel, how set in your ways, there's still space to bend. Still time to shift. Still light to reflect. And still a pull, soft, patient, lunar, inviting you to move. Tonight, wherever you are, let the moon find you. Let it shine on your skin, or through your window, or even just through this voice. Let it remind you that you are part of this dance. You are not lost. You are not separate. You are a tide in motion. You are being moved not by accident but by design. And even in your stillness, something deep within you is rising. There is something deeply comforting in the knowledge that tides will continue long after we're gone. That the moon will still rise, and the sea will still lift itself to meet it, again and again, in quiet devotion. Long after cities fade and memories dissolve, that gentle pull will remain, a cosmic whisper between worlds. This rhythm is older than language, older than fire, older than the first time a human looked up and wondered. And that wonder is still alive in you. It's the same wonder that pulls you toward oceans when your heart feels heavy. The same wonder that quiets you when moonlight spills through your window. The same wonder that brought you here, now listening, drifting, feeling, even if you didn't know why. Maybe this is why you're here tonight. Not just to learn how tides work, but to remember that you are part of something larger, something graceful, something eternal. And even now, scientists still study this dance with awe. We map tides to the minute, we chart them to guide ships, predict floods, power turbines. Yes, the moon's pull is even used for energy. In places like Nova Scotia and the UK, tidal power stations convert the motion of the sea into electricity. The moon, without trying, without speaking, helps us keep the lights on. Isn't that beautiful? That something so quiet can give so much? That a presence so far away can still serve us? Even now? Maybe there's a lesson in that too. That you don't have to push to make an impact. You can just be steady, luminous, and kind. And still, despite all our measuring, despite our data and instruments, there is a part of this story that cannot be touched by numbers. The part that makes someone stand barefoot on a shoreline at midnight, staring up at the sky, and feel moved. Not just emotionally, physically. It's as if the body itself remembers that it came from the sea. That it was once a creature that rose and fell with the tide. That, in some deep part of your cells, you still are. Your heartbeat slows when you hear waves. Your breath softens when the wind smells like salt. Even your thoughts begin to move in loops instead of lines. Like the moon, like the sea. Let me ask you something gently. When was the last time you let yourself drift? Not toward distraction, but toward stillness. toward surrender, toward the kind of presence that doesn't need explanation. When was the last time you let the tide take you instead of trying to swim against it? You don't always have to resist. You don't always have to steer. Sometimes the greatest peace comes when we allow ourselves to be carried, by time, by water, by something ancient and wise that knows where it's going, even if we don't. Children instinctively understand this. Give a child a beach and they'll run toward the tide. They'll jump over the foam, dig where the water leaves its trace, laugh when the waves catch their feet. They don't need to understand the science to feel the pull. It's only later, when we grow older and fill our minds with noise, that we forget what it's like to just feel. Maybe tonight is a night to return to that, not to innocence, but to alignment, to remembering that it's okay to follow something invisible, if it leads you to calm. And speaking of invisible, gravity, the very force that creates tides, cannot be seen, only felt. We infer its presence by its effects. A bulge of water, a swing of the pendulum, a fall of the apple. The moon pulls us with a force we cannot touch, yet we trust it. We believe in it. Maybe love is the same way. Maybe faith is. Maybe the most important things in life are the ones you can't hold, but feel constantly, in the way they shape your world. Have you ever been pulled by something you couldn't explain? Something you just knew was real because of the way it moved you? That's gravity. That's the moon. That's the tide. That's you. Let's imagine, just for a moment, what it would feel like to be water. Not fixed, not hard, not unmovable, but flowing, shifting, responding. Water doesn't cling, but it finds its way. Curves around obstacles. It rises when called. It falls when released. It reflects the moon without question. It listens without resistance. And somehow, in its gentleness, it wears down mountains. You too are allowed to be soft, to bend, to move. You don't need to be a storm to have power. You don't need to be loud to leave an impression. You can be the tide. And what of the future? What happens as the moon continues to drift away, centimeter by centimeter? As days grow longer and tides grow softer, will the earth forget its rhythm? Will the sea grow still? Not for a very, very long time. Millions of years, perhaps. But even then, even when the moon is farther, its story will still live in the rocks, in the fossils of tidal creatures, in the patterns of ancient shells. It will live in poetry, in music, in stories like this one, in quiet voices speaking into the night, trying to describe a feeling that science alone can't hold. So here we are, at the end of our journey, but not at the end of the pull. The moon is still up there, watching, waiting, reflecting the light of a distant sun and giving shape to our oceans, our time, our sleep. And you are part of this story now. The story of a world spun by gravity, shaped by motion, held in orbit by something unseen but unfailing. Maybe you came here tonight looking for facts, and I hope you found them. But maybe, just maybe, what you really needed was permission to feel small and safe in a vast, moving universe. As the tide ebbs from your mind and sleep begins to rise like water in a calm harbor, remember this. You are not adrift. You are being carried. You are not lost. You are simply between tides. And soon the moon will call again, and you'll rise. The world, some watching as the sun rises, others as the stars come out. And somehow, in this strange digital space, we're all floating together in the same quiet moment. Isn't that kind of amazing? So now, if you're ready, let's begin. Long before humans charted maps or measured time, long before cities rose or languages formed, there was the sea. Vast, endless, breathing in and out with a rhythm it never explained. And above it, there was the moon, pale, silent, drifting across the sky. They were partners long before we noticed. The moon's gentle pull on Earth has been a quiet sculptor of our planet's life, nudging the waters this way and that, creating tides that whisper to the shore, pull at the sands, and tell stories of motion, gravity, and balance. You see, gravity is not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It's not like thunder or lightning or the bright blaze of the sun. It's subtle, intimate, and in the relationship between the moon and the sea, gravity becomes something almost romantic. The moon pulls on the ocean, and the ocean moves in reply. Not dramatically all at once, but in long, slow breaths. Tides rising, falling, inching forward, slipping back. It's the most ancient dance you can imagine. But let's go deeper. Picture the Earth as a giant ball of water, with a molten core and layers of rock wrapped in an ocean. The moon orbits this ball, always tugging, not just on the surface but on the entire watery skin of our world. This tug creates what we call the tidal bulge, an elongation of water on the side of the Earth facing the moon. But here's something magical. There's also a bulge on the opposite side. Why? Because gravity is not just a pull, it's a force that bends, stretches, shapes. The Earth's rotation adds to this mystery, and what we experience as high and low tide is the result of this cosmic choreography happening over and over again. Have you ever walked on a beach during low tide and noticed how far the water has retreated? It's like the sea is exhaling, and then a few hours later, it creeps back in, rising slowly, like a breath being drawn. That rhythm, that inhale and exhale, is the moon's signature etched into the fabric of the ocean. But there's more. Tides don't just shape coastlines, they shape life itself. Ancient life first emerged in tide pools, shallow little puddles left behind when the water receded. These pools were like tiny laboratories, full of sunlight and nutrients, giving rise to the first fragile forms of life. Without the moon's pull, without tides, maybe none of us would be here. Think about that for a moment. That glow in the sky, something you've probably glanced at 1,000 times without a second thought, is partly responsible for life on Earth. It's not just beautiful, it's essential. And yet, the moon doesn't pull with equal force everywhere. The shape of the coastline, the depth of the ocean, the tilt of the Earth, they all affect how tides behave. Some places have 2 high tides and 2 low tides a day, others just 1. Some see dramatic shifts where water disappears for miles, while others barely notice a change. It's like the moon is whispering a different message to every shore, shaping each one in its own unique way. Now, you might be wondering, if the moon pulls on the ocean, does it pull on us too? The answer is yes, but not in the way you might think. The gravitational effect on your body is tiny. But the psychological effect, that's a different story. For thousands of years, people believed the moon affected emotions, dreams, behavior. Words like lunacy come from luna, the Latin word for moon. We used to think full moons brought madness. Maybe that's just myth. Or maybe there's something we still don't understand. But here's what we do know. The moon is drifting away from us, slowly, about 3.8 centimeters every year. That might not sound like much, but over millions of years it adds up. Long ago, the moon was much closer. Tides were stronger. Days were shorter. The Earth spun faster. And in the far future, millions of years from now, the moon will be too far to create the same tidal rhythms we know today. The seas will grow still. The dance will fade. So when you stand on the shore and feel the tug of the tide around your ankles, you're touching something temporary. Something ancient, yes, but also something that won't last forever. Isn't that beautiful? That the most constant things in our lives, the moon, the sea, the pull between them, are all changing, all drifting, all slowly saying goodbye? Let me ask you something. Have you ever fallen asleep to the sound of the ocean? That soft, rhythmic push and pull? That sound, that movement is the moon rocking the planet. It's not just water touching shore. It's the universe breathing. And tonight, as you breathe with it, I want you to remember how deeply connected we are to things we barely think about. So take a slow breath. Imagine the moon above you, the sea below, and you, floating quietly between them, pulled by both, grounded by neither. This is the story of gravity, of rhythm, of surrender. A story still being told in every wave, every tide, every quiet moment when the world seems to shift, just a little. Let's imagine, just for a moment, a world without the moon. Without that glowing orb watching over our nights. What would happen if, tomorrow, it simply disappeared? First, the tides. They would shrink dramatically. The sun also pulls on the ocean, yes, but its tidal force is only about half as strong as the moon's. Without the moon, high tides would be lower, low tides would rise. The dramatic pulse of the sea would soften into a gentler, less expressive rhythm. Coastal ecosystems that depend on those powerful tidal changes, the breeding grounds of fish, the nesting cycles of turtles, the feeding patterns of seabirds, would begin to unravel. Life that has evolved for billions of years around the moon's steady dance would begin to feel lost. Then the Earth itself would begin to spin differently. The moon acts as a brake, slowing our rotation. Without it, Earth would spin faster, our days would grow shorter by several hours over time. Imagine a world where a day lasts only 6 or 8 hours. Imagine how quickly the sun would rise and fall, how fast the sky would shift from morning to night. Our internal clocks, the ones that keep time with the sun and moon, would be confused. Sleep patterns, animal migrations, plant growth cycles. Everything would be thrown into chaos. And the seasons? They too might begin to warp. The moon stabilizes the tilt of our planet. That tilt is what gives us spring and fall, summer and winter. Without the moon to hold us steady, Earth might wobble more wildly. Sometimes we'd tilt so far that summers would burn and winters would freeze, more extreme than ever before. Other times, the planet might straighten and give us a year with no seasons at all. Life would adapt, of course, it always does, but it would be a different world. Less predictable, less gentle. Even the night sky would never be the same. That soft silver light we've always known, the one that inspired poets and lovers, sailors and dreamers, would be gone. Nights would be darker, deeper, perhaps lonelier, and in that darkness we might feel a strange ache, a kind of silence where there used to be a lullaby. And yet the moon is still here, still watching, still pulling, still whispering across the oceans with every tide. It doesn't demand attention. It never shouts. It simply exists, constant, faithful, pulling on the sea and on us. Now, if you've ever felt the weight of emotions you couldn't explain, if you've ever stared at the moon and felt something stir inside you, a memory, a longing, a quiet peace, maybe that's gravity too. Not just physical but emotional, a kind of pull from something older than language, a reminder that you're part of something vast, that even as you sit here listening, breathing, being, you are being moved by a moon hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. The moon has no light of its own. It only reflects. But in doing so, it lights our nights, paints our oceans silver, and sends our dreams adrift like little boats on dark waves. Maybe that's what we're doing now, sailing quietly under its glow, letting the waves carry us, letting gravity hold us without ever needing to see the strings. So as you drift off tonight, remember this. The tides will still come and go. The moon will still rise and fall. And you, floating in the space between, are part of this story. You are part sea, part sky, and entirely wonder. Now, take a deep breath. Let go of the noise. Let the quiet of the sea fill your thoughts. The moon is above. The tide is moving. And you are safe in the rhythm of it all. Even in your dreams, the moon continues its pull. Not just on the oceans, not just on the Earth's axis, but on your inner tides. The ones that rise and fall without sound, without surface, deep in your emotional sea. Have you noticed it? How your thoughts sometimes swell without reason, or how you feel a little heavier during a full moon, a little more still during a new one. The ancient ones noticed. Farmers, healers, travelers. They watched the moon and timed their lives to its gentle rhythm. Not because they understood the physics, but because they felt the pattern. The moon was a metronome for their world, and in many ways it still is for ours. Now think of this. Every wave you've ever seen, every surfer who's danced with the sea, every shell you've picked up on a sunlit beach. All of that exists because the moon is where it is, doing what it does. A small, quiet body hanging in space, moving entire oceans. Isn't that a kind of miracle? The moon's gravitational pull creates what we call tidal bulges. These bulges aren't just in the water. They're in the Earth itself. That's right. The moon stretches the solid Earth ever so slightly, like a soft squeeze, like a gentle nudge from the cosmos reminding us that nothing is ever truly still. Even stone can be persuaded to move if the hand is patient enough. And the moon is very, very patient. Twice a day, in most places, the sea rises and falls. But in some corners of the world, the tides are more dramatic. Take the Bay of Fundy, for example, nestled between New Brunswick and Nova Scotia in Canada. There, the water can rise over 50 feet in just 6 hours. 50 feet. That's taller than a 4-story building, and it happens every day. Tourists gather on rocks to watch boats that were stranded in mud suddenly float away as if lifted by invisible hands. And those hands always belong to the moon. But here's something truly beautiful. The ocean doesn't just obey. It dances. You see, the tides don't move in perfect straight lines. They spiral. They twist. They delay and surge depending on the shape of the coast, the depth of the water, the wind in the air. The sea listens to the moon, but it also expresses itself. There's individuality in every coastline, every cove. Just like people, we all feel the same pull, but we respond in our own ways. And the moon doesn't only create tides in the oceans. It helps stir the deep, hidden layers of the sea. It encourages the mixing of nutrients from the seafloor, feeds the tiniest of life forms, plankton, who feed the fish, who feed the whales, who feed entire ecosystems. A single moonbeam can echo through a food chain. And you thought moonlight was just for poetry. Speaking of poetry, did you ever sit beside the sea and just watch it breathe? It doesn't rush. It doesn't stop. It just inhales and exhales, high tide, low tide, forward, back. A rhythm so ancient and so steady that even your heartbeat might begin to follow. That's no accident. The human body is, after all, more than half water. The same force that moves the ocean might be moving you even now. So tell me, where are you right now? What time is it as you listen? Are you near the sea? Or are you somewhere far inland, letting your imagination do the swimming? Wherever you are, pause, listen closely. Can you feel it? The faint push and pull? That gentle tug in your chest? That longing? That settling feeling? As if someone is rocking you softly? That's the moon again. It has pulled at lovers and lunatics, wolves and riders. It has timed the blooming of flowers and the births of coral reefs. It has been blamed for madness and praised for beauty. It has been sung to, cried under, prayed toward. And all the while it just keeps going. Around and around. Pulling. Guiding. Reflecting. Now imagine being on the moon itself. There's no air. No water. No sound. Just rock, dust, silence. And yet from that barren place comes life. Comes motion. Comes the tides. You don't need to be loud to make an impact. You just need to be steady, present, patient. The moon reminds us of that. And here we are, you and me, drifting in this strange and wondrous universe, floating on a spinning rock with a glowing companion who never leaves our side. Isn't that worth marveling at? So rest now, or stay awake and wonder. Either way, you're being held. Not just by gravity, but by story, by connection, by the knowledge that even in the vastness of space, something as small as a moon can shape worlds. And tomorrow, when you see the waves lapping at the shore, remember this moment. Remember the pull. Remember the dance. And maybe, just maybe, say thank you to the sky. Far beneath the ocean's surface, even the deep sea listens. There, in darkness untouched by sunlight, where strange creatures drift like living dreams, the moon's influence still echoes. The tides may not roar here, but they whisper. They stir the currents that sweep through underwater canyons, bringing life where otherwise there would be none. Nutrients lifted from the seafloor ride these quiet waves, nourishing creatures that glow in the dark, creatures we barely understand. And all of them, in some way, owe their survival to the moon's invisible pull. Scientists call this the internal tide, a hidden tide beneath the surface moving not just water but energy. It's like the sea has a second heartbeat, one we can't see, but one that keeps the whole system alive. And what powers it? Not engines, not machines, just gravity and time. The moon, in its silence, is a master of time. It has no voice, no breath, and yet it commands rhythm across the globe. In some ancient calendars, months were based not on numbers, but on the moon's phases. New moon, waxing, full, waning, a soft cycle, dependable, like a lullaby played by the sky. People would plant crops by it, predict weather with it, and in some cultures even plan weddings or births based on its timing. Think of that. How many decisions across history were made because of the moon's face that night? Now pause, breathe. Do you see how everything is connected? The moon doesn't just move water. It moves lives. Fishermen wake and rest by the tides. Crabs scuttle ashore only when the moon says the water is right. Sea turtles, ancient, graceful, and slow, climb out under moonlight to lay their eggs on warm sand, trusting the timing they've inherited from generations past. And months later, the hatchlings follow that same moonlight back to the sea. They do not question. They do not fear. They simply follow the glow. Even coral, the silent architects of underwater cities, time their spawning to the moon. All across a reef, at once, they release life into the current, as if following some secret signal. A cue from the moon. So many creatures responding not to noise or command, but to light. Soft, reflected light. Imagine that power, to affect the living world simply by being. The moon doesn't create its own light, remember. It reflects the sun's. And yet, through reflection alone it guides, influences, inspires. There's a lesson there. You don't always need to be the source. Sometimes reflecting the right light is enough. Sometimes being still and steady is what others need most. The moon teaches us this not with words, but with action. Or rather, with presence. And the tides continue, day after day, night after night. Not perfect, but dependable. Not uniform, but rhythmic. They change with the seasons, with the phases of the moon, with the positions of the earth and sun. It's a grand dance of celestial bodies, and yet, the rhythm is felt in the puddle beside the pier, in the wet footprint left on a beach at dawn. Small things, moved by vast forces. And so too are we. When we feel lost, or overwhelmed, or caught in currents we don't understand, perhaps it's worth remembering the tide. It doesn't resist. It doesn't fight the pull. It rises, it falls, and it comes again. Stronger, calmer, reshaped. Maybe you're in a low tide right now. That's okay. The high tide will come. It always does. And maybe you're the moon in someone else's sky, quietly helping them rise, quietly pulling them toward light. Now let the thought drift like seafoam. Let it dissolve into the hush. The moon is still out there, always, watching over waves, lighting up clouds, reminding us, gently, that everything moves in cycles, that change is not an enemy. It is a companion, a rhythm, a tide. And as the sea breathes, so do you. Inhale, exhale, rest. Far beneath the ocean's surface, even the deep sea listens. There, in darkness untouched by sunlight, where strange creatures drift like living dreams, the moon's influence still echoes. The tides may not roar here, but they whisper. They stir the currents that sweep through underwater canyons, bringing life where otherwise there would be none. Nutrients lifted from the seafloor ride these quiet waves, nourishing creatures that glow in the dark, creatures we barely understand. And all of them, in some way, owe their survival to the moon's invisible pull. Scientists call this the internal tide, a hidden tide beneath the surface moving not just water but energy. It's like the sea has a second heartbeat, one we can't see, but one that keeps the whole system alive. And what powers it? Not engines, not machines, just gravity and time. The moon, in its silence, is a master of time. It has no voice, no breath, and yet it commands rhythm across the globe. In some ancient calendars, months were based not on numbers, but on the moon's phases. New moon, waxing, full, waning, a soft cycle, dependable, like a lullaby played by the sky. People would plant crops by it, predict weather with it, and in some cultures even plan weddings or births based on its timing. Think of that. How many decisions across history were made because of the moon's face that night? Now pause, breathe. Do you see how everything is connected? The moon doesn't just move water. It moves lives. Fishermen wake and rest by the tides. Crabs scuttle ashore only when the moon says the water is right. Sea turtles, ancient, graceful, and slow, climb out under moonlight to lay their eggs on warm sand, trusting the timing they've inherited from generations past. And months later, the hatchlings follow that same moonlight back to the sea. They do not question. They do not fear. They simply follow the glow. Even coral, the silent architects of underwater cities, time their spawning to the moon. All across a reef, at once, they release life into the current, as if following some secret signal. A cue from the moon. So many creatures responding not to noise or command, but to light. Soft, reflected light. Imagine that power, to affect the living world simply by being. The moon doesn't create its own light, remember. It reflects the sun's. And yet, through reflection alone it guides, influences, inspires. There's a lesson there. You don't always need to be the source. Sometimes reflecting the right light is enough. Sometimes being still and steady is what others need most. The moon teaches us this not with words, but with action. Or rather, with presence. And the tides continue, day after day, night after night. Not perfect, but dependable. Not uniform, but rhythmic. They change with the seasons, with the phases of the moon, with the positions of the earth and sun. It's a grand dance of celestial bodies, and yet, the rhythm is felt in the puddle beside the pier, in the wet footprint left on a beach at dawn. Small things, moved by vast forces. And so too are we. When we feel lost, or overwhelmed, or caught in currents we don't understand, perhaps it's worth remembering the tide. It doesn't resist. It doesn't fight the pull. It rises, it falls, and it comes again. Stronger, calmer, reshaped. Maybe you're in a low tide right now. That's okay. The high tide will come. It always does. And maybe you're the moon in someone else's sky, quietly helping them rise, quietly pulling them toward light. Now let the thought drift like seafoam. Let it dissolve into the hush. The moon is still out there, always, watching over waves, lighting up clouds, reminding us, gently, that everything moves in cycles, that change is not an enemy. It is a companion, a rhythm, a tide. And as the sea breathes, so do you. Inhale, exhale, rest. Would you like to continue with more? You said, continue. ChatGPT said, and so, under the soft gaze of the moon, we continue our journey, drifting with the tide of thought, suspended in the delicate balance between the sea below and the stars above. Have you ever wondered why the ocean never tires? Why the waves keep coming again and again, as if trying to tell us something? It's because they are being whispered to by the moon, nudged forward by gravity's gentle hand. Every crest, every crash on the shore, every ripple that breaks the silence of a still night is a message, a pulse, the sea's heartbeat, timed by the sky. Now think, how long has this been happening? Before you were born, before anyone you know was born, before cities, before language, before fire. The tides were moving, quietly, endlessly. Dinosaurs watched the waves roll in under ancient moons. Primitive fish once felt the pull long before life ever reached land. And now, here we are, with cameras and satellites and telescopes, and we're still watching the same moon, still listening to the same tide. Isn't that beautiful? We chase progress. We race through time. But the moon and the sea, they move at their own pace. Ancient, timeless, patient. They remind us that some things are not meant to be rushed. Some truths only emerge when you slow down, breathe, and simply watch. You might be wondering, if the moon controls the tides, does it control anything else? It's a question worth asking. Some scientists believe the moon influences more than just oceans. Some suggest it can affect weather patterns, the migration of animals, even the sleep cycles of humans. In fact, studies have shown that people often sleep less deeply during a full moon, even in darkened rooms. Strange, isn't it? That even when we try to block it out, something in us still knows the moon is full. Have you ever felt restless on a full moon night? As if something was stirring just outside your reach? Maybe it's not just you. Maybe it's the same pull the ocean feels. The same tug that turns the tide. And yet, the moon never touches the sea. It stays distant, watching, guiding, pulling with gravity and trust alone. That's a kind of love, isn't it? A distant love, a gravitational love, one that doesn't demand, one that simply pulls. And the Earth responds, every day, every night. Even the crust of our planet rises and falls slightly with the moon's pull, just a few centimeters. Mountains bow, deserts sigh, all for the moon. Not just the sea, but the very bones of the Earth move when the moon is near. And if Earth moves, what about us? Aren't we part of the Earth too? Maybe that explains the quiet ache we sometimes feel at night. The pull to look up, to step outside, to stand barefoot under a glowing sky and feel something. It's not just poetry. It's physics. It's the soft science of being alive. And here, on the shores of your mind, as we drift together under this celestial glow, I want you to ask yourself, where are you right now? Not just geographically, but emotionally, spiritually. Are you in high tide, overflowing with feeling? Or in low tide, pulled back, waiting, still? Whatever the answer, it's okay. The tide is not wrong. It just is. And just as the moon lifts the sea, this story, this journey, is meant to lift you gently. Not to rush you, not to force you, but to remind you that you are part of something vast, something moving, something ancient and kind. The moon's gentle pull is not only for the sea. It is for the dreamer in you, the part of you that listens even when there's silence, the part of you that rises, even when no one sees. Now, take another breath. Feel the tide within you, the slow, deep current that connects you to every wave, every star, every breath in this moment. We are still here together under the same moon. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a quiet beach. No noise but the distant hush of waves, a rhythm older than language. You look up. The moon is bright, perhaps even full. And in that moment, you're not just watching the moon, you are with it. Your breath sinking with the rise and fall of the tide. Your thoughts carried gently like driftwood on the sea. This pull between moon and earth, it isn't just science. It's poetry in motion. And yet, let's step deeper into the science for a moment. Not to break the spell, but to strengthen it. Because the truth of this connection is as beautiful as any dream. Tides are created primarily by the gravitational pull of the moon, and to a lesser extent, the sun. But it's not just a simple tug. It's a dance, a balance of forces. The moon pulls the water on the side of Earth facing it, creating a bulge, a high tide. But interestingly, there's another high tide on the opposite side of the Earth too. Why? Because as the moon pulls Earth slightly toward it, the water on the far side is left behind in a sense, creating a second bulge. Two high tides, two low tides, every day, like the inhale and exhale of a planetary breath. Have you noticed it? That sense of rhythm? Of things moving even when you're still. If you live near the coast, maybe you've seen it yourself, how the beach disappears for hours and then slowly returns. Fishermen know it. Crabs know it. Sea turtles know it. And somehow, so do we. Even if we've never studied it, we feel it. Because we are made of water, too. Nearly 60% of our bodies are water. And though science doesn't claim the moon affects our internal fluids the way it affects oceans, some part of us still listens to the call. Some part of us feels the moon, not just sees it. Now let me ask you something. When was the last time you stood still under the moonlight? Not through a window, not from a speeding car, but truly stood there. Under it, letting that pale silver light soak into your skin, like a kind of quiet medicine? Maybe it's been years, maybe never, or maybe that's why you're here now, listening, remembering, longing, because the moon, and the sea it moves, have a way of pulling at what's hidden inside us. Not just the tides, but the tides of memory, of emotion, of longing. Sometimes we don't even know why we feel what we feel, but the moon does, keeps our secrets. It sees without asking. Have you noticed how different the world feels under moonlight? How trees look older, how silence feels deeper. It's as if the world is dreaming, and we've stepped inside that dream. The ancient ones believed the moon held great power. In many cultures, it was more than just a rock in the sky. It was a goddess, a guardian, a calendar, a sign. The Inuit believed it could heal. The Greeks gave her a name, Selene. The Romans called her Luna. In India, she is Chandra. In Japan, Tsukuyami. All across time and place, humans have looked up and seen more than just a glowing sphere. They've seen meaning, pattern, magic, and always, the sea moved in time with her. Now, I want you to imagine being on a ship in the middle of the ocean, no land in sight. Just water, stars, and that eternal light from above. The sea around you rises and falls in silent coordination with a moon you can barely believe is real. In that moment, would you feel small or infinite? That's the paradox of the moon's pull. It reminds us how tiny we are and how connected. Because even from 384,400 kilometers away, the moon moves us. Isn't that remarkable? Even from a distance, it matters. Even in silence, it speaks. What does that say about the power of presence, of quiet influence? Think about it. The moon doesn't shout. It doesn't burn or roar. It simply is. It shows up. It stays. And in doing so, it moves entire oceans. It lights the way for sailors. It shapes the rhythm of life on Earth. And sometimes it simply reminds someone, maybe even you, to look up. So maybe, in a world that tells you to be louder, faster, brighter, the moon says, be still, be constant, be kind. Let your presence do the pulling. Just like the tides, just like the moon. Now let the thoughts settle. And when you're ready, and so we drift further, deeper into the quiet pull of the universe, where time stretches like waves and everything ancient feels suddenly alive. The sea beneath us moves in slow conversation with the sky above. Every ripple, every swell, every subtle shift in current, all echoing the moon's unspoken words. This is not just water, not just salt and motion. It is memory. It is rhythm. It is the pulse of Earth itself. Long ago, before clocks ticked and calendars ruled our lives, humans looked to the moon and the tides to tell time. The ocean's edge was their clock. High tide, low tide, each shift a message. Farmers planted by the moon. Fishermen planned by the tides. Lovers met beneath its light. There was a wisdom in this slow, circular time, not measured in hours, but in cycles. And perhaps we've lost something in forgetting it. Because when we moved away from nature's rhythms, we lost our own. Yet the moon is patient. It still waits. It still pulls. And tides are not just oceanic. They exist in the atmosphere, too. Even the Earth's crust rises and falls ever so slightly in response to the moon. Invisible tides in rock and air. That's the scale of her touch. Strong enough to shift land, yet gentle enough to stir dreams. You see, the moon teaches us something profound. That influence isn't always loud. True power may lie in quiet persistence. Even the deepest parts of the sea, the mysterious trenches miles beneath the surface, feel her pull. They move too. They are not untouched. And neither are we. In fact, some scientists believe the moon may have helped life begin at all. Think about that. Billions of years ago, Earth spun much faster. Days were only 6 hours long. But the moon's gravitational embrace slowed the Earth's rotation, calming the planet, giving oceans time to form, giving tides time to churn. This steady, rocking motion may have stirred the chemical soup of early Earth just enough to spark life. The moon didn't just light the night. It helped life rise from darkness. So next time you see it, glowing in the sky like a lantern from another world, remember, you owe it more than poems. You owe it your breath. Your heartbeat, the very blood in your veins, with its quiet ebb and flow. It's no wonder ancient people sang to it, built monuments aligned with it, painted it in caves. The moon has always been more than science. It's a symbol of hope, of constancy, of beauty that doesn't demand attention, but receives it anyway. And today, even with our satellites and telescopes and cities that never sleep, we still look up. We still feel something stir. That is the power of the moon's pull. It reminds us of what's eternal. So if you're feeling lost, adrift in the sea of modern noise, go outside. Find the moon. Watch the tide. You'll find yourself again in their rhythm. Because no matter how far we go, no matter how fast the world spins, the moon will always be there. Pulling, guiding, whispering. Let's think about this. Every coastline on Earth has been carved and reshaped over millions of years, not just by waves or storms, but by the moon's gravity. The rise and fall of the sea, the slow erosion of cliffs, the sediment that travels down rivers and settles into estuaries. All these natural processes dance to the beat of the lunar tide. The moon is not just pulling water. It is shaping Earth's geography. It is writing in stone. And that motion, that persistent tug-of-war between the Earth and the moon, creates something beautiful: tidal friction. This slow, graceful drag is what causes Earth's rotation to decelerate ever so slightly over millions of years. This is why our days are growing longer. Not by much, just about 1.7 milliseconds per century, but enough to prove that the moon's embrace is always working, always reshaping time itself. Isn't that wild to think about? That the moon, so quiet, so passive in appearance, is actually altering time. Slowing down the spin of our entire planet. It's like she's asking us all to slow down with her, to breathe, to reflect, to not rush. And as we drift further into the layers of this story, we must talk about resonance. That mysterious harmony between the moon's orbit and the tides. You see, tides aren't just created by gravity. They are amplified by resonance. The way water sloshes in an ocean basin, the way it rises and falls, is all part of a resonance system. Like the way a wine glass hums when you run your finger along the rim. The oceans hum back at the moon. Now pause for a moment. Have you ever stood at the shore and just listened? Not to the crash of the waves, but to the spaces between them. There's something ancient there. Something that whispers not in words, but in motion. You're hearing the earth breathe. You're hearing the moon speak. It's also why different coastlines experience tides so differently. Some places have 2 high tides and 2 low tides a day. Others only 1. Some have extreme differences in water levels, while others change only slightly. It all depends on geography, the shape of the land, the depth of the water, and how the moon's gravity resonates with that unique space. It's personal, local, specific. The moon doesn't treat all parts of the earth the same. She knows each coastline's name. And so we see, the moon is not just moving the sea. She is composing a symphony, a song played on the strings of Earth's oceans. And every place on Earth hears it differently. Have you ever wondered what the ocean might say if it could speak? Maybe it already does, in tides, in whispers, in the rustle of seafoam across sand. And maybe the moon is its language. Then let's keep drifting onward, you and I, beneath this quiet lunar sway, beneath the surface of the ocean, where light fades into blue and then into black, there exists another world. A secret realm ruled not by the sun, but by the moon. In these underwater kingdoms, countless species time their lives to the tides. Fish, crustaceans, mollusks, and corals. All responding not to clocks or calendars, but to the pulse of the sea. Think of the grunion fish, tiny, silver, almost fragile. And yet, their lives are tied to one of nature's most precise tidal events. Along the beaches of California, during the nights of the new and full moon, these fish throw themselves onto the sand to spawn. They know, somehow mysteriously, that the tide will reach its peak and then pull back, leaving behind their eggs buried in moist sand. 2 weeks later, like clockwork, the tides return, and the next generation is swept out to sea. Isn't that astonishing? That the moon, 384,000 kilometers away, is telling fish when to be born? And what about corals? Those quiet architects of underwater cities, reefs that shelter a quarter of all marine life. In places like the Great Barrier Reef, corals release their gametes into the water all at once in massive spawning events. But when, during a full moon, they wait for it, sensing the faint change in light, perhaps the gravity too. It's like a planetary heartbeat pulsing beneath the waves. Even deep-sea creatures, miles below where any sunlight reaches, feel this pull. Biologists have discovered that some species of plankton rise and fall in the water column depending on the moon. This is called vertical migration, and it is the largest synchronized movement of biomass on Earth. And guess what controls it? Lunar light. Not just the gravity, but the gentle glow filtering down from above. It's humbling, isn't it? That life itself, even in its smallest and deepest forms, responds to something so far away. That the moon's touch extends not only across continents but through salt water, through biology, through time. And it's not just animals. Human cultures have felt this rhythm too. For millennia, we've navigated oceans using the stars and moon. Fishermen in coastal villages from Japan to Kerala to Nova Scotia have lived by the tides, launching boats at high tide and returning with the moon still hovering above the horizon. Indigenous calendars were often lunar, shaped by the cycles of the moon and by the behavior of animals that responded to those tides. Our ancestors listened closely, and in their stories, the moon was always alive. A goddess, a guide, a guardian. Let me ask you this. Have you ever planned something? A walk on the beach, a night swim, a boat ride, and found it felt just right, even magical? Maybe, without realizing it, you were in rhythm with the tide. Maybe the moon was walking with you. So what is the moon, really? A rock? A satellite? A gravitational influence? Or is she something more? A quiet choreographer of oceans? A keeper of secrets? A tender force that turns the wheel of life, one tide at a time? Have you ever heard someone say, "It must be a full moon"? Maybe they were talking about a restless night, a burst of strange behavior, or a feeling that something was just off. It's an old idea, ancient in fact, and found in cultures across the world, that the full moon brings change, even chaos. But is there any truth to it? Let's look at what science says, and what it still doesn't fully understand. Our bodies, just like the Earth, are made mostly of water. Around 60% of the human body is water, and the brain, that beautiful mysterious organ, is closer to 75%. So if the moon can move oceans, can it not stir the fluids inside us? Some researchers have tried to find links between the moon and human behavior. Sleep studies, for instance, have shown that people may sleep slightly less and have more disrupted sleep during the full moon, even in completely dark, controlled environments. Isn't that eerie? Even without seeing the moonlight, our bodies seem to know. Why? No one knows for sure, but the data whispers that something subtle is happening. Hospital workers, especially emergency room staff, have long believed in the lunar effect. More patients, more erratic behavior, more emotional volatility. Some studies support this, others don't. The science is divided, but the folklore is not. The word lunatic itself comes from luna, the Latin word for moon. In medieval times, it was believed that the moon could drive people mad, that it could open hidden doors inside the mind. Now, let's not jump too far. We're not saying the moon makes us wild. But maybe, just maybe, it brushes against our biology in ways we're only beginning to notice. After all, we've already seen how it synchronizes marine life. Why wouldn't some part of us, long ago shaped by tides and moonlight, still remember that rhythm? And then there's the menstrual cycle. On average, it's 28 days, just like the lunar cycle. Coincidence? Possibly. But many cultures throughout history connected menstruation with the moon. Ancient healers and tribal elders believed women were in tune with lunar rhythms. Modern studies show no definitive link, but an enormous number of women still report syncing with the moon, ovulating or menstruating with the full or new moon. What if this too is a quiet memory, echoing in our biology? Have you ever noticed how your mood shifts with the moon? Some people feel more energized during a full moon, others feel restless. Some feel pulled inward during a new moon, quiet and reflective. Is that simply psychology, or is the moon reflecting something inside us or drawing it out? Think about your own life. When was the last time you paused and looked at the moon? Did it stir something in you? Did you feel small, or connected, or strangely awake? Tell me, and be honest. Do you believe the moon affects you? This is what makes the moon so fascinating. It is both a scientific force and a mythic presence. It pulls tides with predictable gravity, and yet also pulls at the soul with poetry and wonder. It belongs to physics, yes, but it also belongs to dreams, to stories, to human longing. The moon doesn't speak, and yet we hear her. The moon doesn't reach down, and yet we feel her touch. She is a mirror of light, of water, of us. And as we continue, let's look now at something even more subtle. How the moon may be changing the earth itself. Not just the tides or the people, but the very rotation of the planet. Yes, the moon is not just pulling the sea. It's slowing the earth. Over billions of years, the moon has been gently tugging at earth. Not just at its oceans, but at its very spin. And in that quiet, cosmic dance, time itself has been stretched. You see, in the deep past, around 1.4 billion years ago, a day on Earth was only about 18 hours long. Let that sink in. The sun would rise and fall faster. The rhythm of life would beat quicker. But as the moon pulled at Earth's oceans, dragging water back and forth across the globe, it created a tiny resistance, a kind of friction. This tidal friction slowed Earth's rotation, second by second, century by century. Now, our day is 24 hours. But it didn't get there suddenly. It was a long, slow waltz between the Earth and the moon. In fact, even today, the Earth's rotation continues to slow by about 1.7 milliseconds per century. It's barely noticeable to us, but on a geological timescale, it's profound. Imagine a future Earth where the days stretch longer, slowly crawling toward 25 hours, 26 hours. It won't happen in our lifetime, but the process is unfolding even now under our feet and above our heads. It's one of the moon's most invisible but most powerful influences. And where does that lost energy go? Here's the beautiful part: it doesn't disappear. The moon steals it. Every bit of rotational energy that Earth loses gets transferred to the moon. As a result, the moon is drifting away. Yes, literally. Every year, the moon moves about 3.8 centimeters farther from Earth. It's a tiny amount, about the width of your fingernail, but it's happening. Scientists have confirmed this using laser reflectors left on the moon during the Apollo missions. Light sent from Earth bounces off these reflectors, measuring the distance with incredible precision. So, over millions of years, this has added up. The moon, which once loomed much larger in Earth's sky, is slowly slipping away. Our constant companion, our cosmic twin, growing ever more distant. Have you ever felt someone important in your life drifting away? That slow, silent change, you notice it, but you can't stop it. That's what the Earth feels with the moon. A loss so gradual it doesn't hurt, until one day you look up, and it's just a little dimmer than before. This is where science becomes poetry. Because what are we if not creatures of cycles, of patterns, of cosmic dances? The moon is not just a rock in the sky. It's the reason our planet is stable, prevents wild tilts in our axis, keeps our seasons steady. It shapes the length of our days, the depth of our oceans, and perhaps even the rhythm of our hearts. So next time you see the moon, maybe rising over the sea or peeking between trees, know that you are looking at a force that has literally shaped your world. A partner in the dark, whispering across time. But we're not done yet. Now we're going to explore something truly magical, how life itself evolved under the influence of the moon. Yes, from the first flickers of life in the tidal pools to the migrations of animals and the sleep of humans, the moon has been a silent teacher. So stay with me, take a deep breath, and tell me, can you feel her pull? In the beginning, life on Earth was fragile, tiny, single-celled organisms drifting through ancient seas. There was no land life yet, no trees, no birds, no humans. Just oceans, sky, and the gentle tug of the moon. But that tug created something profound: rhythm. As the moon pulled on the oceans, it caused the water to rise and fall. These tides weren't just dramatic movements of water, they were timekeepers. Twice a day, the seas would surge onto the shores and then retreat. This created unique environments. Warm, shallow pools left behind by the tide, full of minerals, nutrients, and sunlight. These tide pools may have been some of the first cradles of life. Imagine tiny organisms washed into these pools by the ocean, trapped there by the retreating water. The sun warms the water. Chemical reactions begin. New molecules form. Life finds a way. And when the tide returns, some of these organisms get swept back out, spreading their adaptations, their changes, their tiny evolutionary experiments into the wider sea. In this way, the moon helped create a rhythm of opportunity and survival. Over time, these little pulses may have been the clock that life used to divide time, to regulate energy, to evolve complexity. Even today, many marine creatures still follow the tides like ancient instructions. Crabs spawn during certain lunar phases. Coral reefs, across vast oceans, will all release their eggs on the same night of the full moon, as if they were listening to an invisible drummer. But it's not just marine life. The moon's light, its cycles of waxing and waning, also became a kind of biological calendar for life on Earth. For millions of years, animals have used the phases of the moon to navigate migration, reproduction, and feeding patterns. Sea turtles, for example, hatch under the cover of darkness on beaches and make their desperate run to the ocean. But how do they know which way to go? Many of them use the brightness of the moon reflecting off the water to find their way. Remove the moon, and much of nature's choreography begins to fall apart. Even insects like fireflies or birds migrating across continents are believed to take cues from lunar light and gravity. And humans? We, too, carry this ancient connection. Our ancestors, sleeping under the stars, watched the moon wax and wane. They planted crops by its cycle. They told stories, shaped myths, and organized their lives around its glow. Many traditional calendars, like the Islamic, Hebrew, and Chinese calendars, are based on the lunar cycle. Women's menstrual cycles, averaging around 28 days, have often been linked to the lunar month. While science still debates the strength of this connection, cultures across the world have long seen the moon as a symbol of fertility, transformation, and interchange. Isn't it fascinating that this cold, silent rock orbiting far above us could be so intimately tied to the rhythms of blood, birth, and breath? And what about sleep? Have you ever found it harder to sleep during a full moon? You're not alone. Some studies suggest that people experience more restlessness during the full moon, even in windowless rooms. Why? No one knows for sure. But maybe, deep in our biology, we are still listening to the moon's whisper. So let me ask you, have you ever felt the urge to walk under the full moon? To stay up late, to dream a little deeper, to feel more alive? Maybe that feeling isn't just poetry. Maybe it's ancient memory, something encoded in your cells from a time long before language, when we too lived by the tides. So as we continue this journey, let's not think of the moon as distant. Let's see it for what it truly is. An old friend, a quiet guardian, a sculptor of life on Earth. And now let's go even deeper. We've talked about the moon shaping tides and guiding life, but it also protects us in ways you might not expect. And as we follow the moon's quiet path across the sky, we begin to realize something extraordinary. Its influence extends far beyond the oceans and the tilt of our planet. It seeps into life itself. Have you ever wondered why so many creatures, from tiny plankton to massive sea turtles, time their movements with the moon? Why certain flowers bloom only in moonlight? Why even you, perhaps unknowingly, feel a shift in mood or energy during a full moon? Let's start at sea. In the vast, open waters, countless marine species rely on lunar cycles to guide their lives. Corals, for instance, perform synchronized mass spawning events, releasing eggs and sperm into the water at the exact same time, all coordinated by the phase of the moon. This isn't random, it's precision. The moon tells them when it's safe, when the tide will carry their offspring away from predators. Sea turtles, too, born under the cover of night, wait for the light of the full moon to guide them back to the sea. The moon becomes a lighthouse for life. And then there are the ancient rhythms encoded in our biology. Scientists have discovered that even human sleep patterns can shift with the lunar phase. During the full moon, we tend to sleep less and report lighter sleep. No one's entirely sure why. It might be the brightness, or it might be something deeper, an ancestral response hardwired into our DNA. Some studies suggest our ancestors may have stayed more alert on full moon nights, when predators were more likely to hunt. Even today, emergency rooms report an uptick in visits during the full moon. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe something deeper stirs within us when the moon is at its brightest. Think about that. A rock 384,000 kilometers away is potentially affecting how you feel, how you sleep, how your body responds to the world around you. Doesn't that make you feel just a little more connected to the cosmos? And this connection isn't new. Our ancestors knew it. Ancient civilizations across the world built calendars around lunar cycles. They worshipped moon gods and goddesses. They aligned temples with lunar events. The moon wasn't just a light in the sky. It was sacred, powerful, divine. In ancient Egypt, the god Khonsu was known as the traveler, the god of the moon. In Mesopotamia, the moon god Nana was associated with wisdom. In China, the moon festival honors Chang'e, the moon goddess who lives in solitude. And in India, the moon is called Chandra, riding a chariot across the night sky. These weren't just stories. They were reflections of a truth that science is only now beginning to catch up to. That the moon shapes life in ways both seen and unseen. And now, let's turn the lens toward time itself. The very concept of a month is based on the moon's journey around Earth. Our earliest calendars were lunar. Farmers planted crops based on lunar phases. Festivals were timed with full moons. Even menstruation, the biological rhythm of fertility, often follows a lunar cycle. The moon became a keeper of time before we ever had clocks. You see, in Earth's early days, the moon was much closer. Tides were stronger, more violent, churning the primordial soup along the coastlines, mixing chemicals, heating and cooling with each cycle. Some scientists believe these tidal pools, stirred by the moon, were where life first sparked. Without the moon, the story of life on Earth might have never begun. So here we are, billions of years later, staring up at the same moon. A moon that helped spark life, shape time, guide the seas, and influence human hearts. And you, right now, are part of that same story. Now, I want to know, do you believe in the moon's magic? Have you ever felt it calling to you? What's your moon story? Let me know in the comments. Or better yet, the next time you see the moon rising, stop and whisper your thoughts to it. It's been listening for a very, very long time. And here, on the Mad Human channel, we're just beginning to unravel what it all means. The tides, the sleep, the myths, the science. It's all connected. And in our next chapter, we'll explore the moon's role in the dance of eclipses, gravity, and even human emotion. And as we step deeper into this moonlit exploration, let us turn our gaze to one of the most mystical phenomena the moon brings to our skies: eclipses. When the Earth, moon, and sun align just so, we are gifted with a spectacle that has stirred awe and fear for thousands of years. A lunar eclipse, where Earth casts its shadow over the moon, paints it a deep, blood-red hue, an eerie, poetic event. Meanwhile, a solar eclipse, when the moon perfectly blots out the sun for a fleeting moment, plunges daylight into twilight and sends birds into silence. But beyond the drama, eclipses are a reminder of celestial precision. They happen because of the delicate dance of three cosmic bodies, each obeying the laws of gravity with grace and rhythm. But why do eclipses matter to us beyond their visual beauty? Because they remind us that we are part of a cosmic choreography. They tie us to the moon not just physically but emotionally. Ancient civilizations saw eclipses as omens. For the Inca, a lunar eclipse meant a jaguar was eating the moon. In India, it was believed that the demon Rahu was swallowing it whole. These weren't just stories. They were humanity's early attempts to explain their connection to something vast and uncontrollable. Today, we know the science, but the awe remains. In fact, many people report feeling different during eclipses. More energized, more anxious, more connected. Maybe it's just psychology. Or maybe, just maybe, the moon's shadow does stir something deeper in our collective soul. And if the moon's eclipses are the dramatic performances of the cosmos, then gravity is its quiet, constant dialogue with Earth. The moon's gravitational tug isn't just a force that lifts oceans. It also slows down our planet's spin. Yes, every year the moon is inching away from us. about 3.8 centimeters annually, and in doing so, it's gradually lengthening our days. Long ago, a day on Earth lasted only 6 hours. Thanks to the moon, we now enjoy 24. So every second you live is a gift of lunar influence, an expansion of time itself. And this brings us to something humbling. The moon is shaping not just the ocean, not just biology, but the very pace at which our world turns. It's not just out there. It's shaping here. Now pause with me. Take a breath. Imagine the moon, high above, gently pulling on Earth's oceans, subtly shifting your sleep, guiding the migrations of animals, slowing the spin of a planet, and influencing myths that span thousands of years. This isn't fantasy. This is science wrapped in poetry. This is real. And it makes you wonder, if the moon can do all this, what else is it doing? Could it affect creativity? Is the phrase moonstruck just metaphor? Or is there a deeper truth? Some of the world's most famous art, music, and literature have been inspired by the moon. Beethoven, Van Gogh, Shakespeare, they all gazed upward and found something more. Could it be that the moon not only moves water and time, but stirs imagination? The night it lights becomes a canvas. The dreams it blesses become stories. In some indigenous cultures, the moon is seen as a storyteller, changing form each night to share a new tale. And maybe, as you stare at it, something stirs in you too. A memory, a feeling, a sudden idea. The moon, then, becomes more than a satellite. It becomes a mirror of Earth, of ourselves. And while the moon has shaped our world for billions of years, our relationship with it is evolving. In the modern era, we've walked on its surface. We've sent rovers, measured its dust, mapped its craters. But even with all our instruments, we've only begun to scratch the surface, literally and metaphorically. The moon still hides secrets. Did it once have volcanic activity? Could it harbor water in its shaded craters? Might it one day be a stepping stone to Mars? These are questions scientists are racing to answer. But the deeper question, the one no instrument can measure, is why we feel so drawn to it in the first place. And maybe that's the greatest mystery of all. The moon is not alive. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't think. Yet somehow it makes us feel wonder, peace, longing, connection. That, perhaps, is the most powerful pull of all. So the next time you see the tide rolling in, the next time you feel restlessness under a full moon, the next time you lose track of time watching moonlight dance on the water, remember this: you're feeling the moon's gentle pull. A pull that stretches back to the very beginning. A pull that will last long after you and I are gone. The moon is not just a rock in the sky. It's a reminder that even in silence, even in distance, connection is possible. And on the Mad Human channel, we'll keep following that thread. From the moon's birth in a violent collision to its future, as it drifts away from us inch by inch, we'll keep uncovering the magic hidden in the quietest forces of the universe. So if you've ever looked up at the night sky and felt small but somehow infinite, you're not alone. That's the moon, reaching out across space and time, just to remind you, you're part of something bigger. And that is a beautiful thing. As we look beyond the physical moon and into the cultural moon, its face in our myths, music, poetry, and beliefs, we realize that the moon isn't just a celestial object. It's a symbol, a companion, a muse. In nearly every ancient civilization, the moon was a deity, a god or goddess who ruled over time, emotions, crops, fertility, and fate itself. In Egypt, it was Thoth, the god of wisdom. In Greece, it was Selene, the radiant charioteer driving her silver horses across the sky. In Hindu mythology, the moon is Chandra, a powerful and emotional presence riding a white antelope. And in Chinese lore, the moon is the home of Chang'e, the goddess who swallowed the elixir of immortality and floated to the heavens. Her story is told during every mid-autumn festival, an echo of longing, beauty, and light. Why do we personify the moon so often? Because it feels human. It waxes and wanes like our moods. It disappears and returns like our loved ones. It marks time not in straight lines but in cycles, just like we do. Birth, growth, decay, rebirth. And the moon affects more than mythology. it touches every form of expression. In music, it hums quietly in lullabies and soars in orchestras. Think of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, haunting and reflective, as if trying to capture moonbeams in melody. In painting, it's been the light source of inspiration from Van Gogh's Starry Night to the dreamscapes of contemporary artists who still gaze skyward for guidance. In literature, the moon becomes a metaphor for madness, lunacy, mystery, romance, and solitude. Lovers meet under it. Poets write to it. Children make wishes on it. But even in our modern digital world, the moon retains its power. It is not diminished by skyscrapers or smartphones. In fact, as our lives get louder, the moon becomes even more meaningful, a quiet constant in a spinning world. We look at it not to be informed, but to feel, to remember, to reconnect with ourselves, with nature, with the vastness above. And now science is catching up to poetry. As space agencies around the world prepare to return to the moon, not just to visit but to stay, we find ourselves at the edge of a new lunar era. NASA's Artemis program aims to establish a long-term human presence on the moon. Private companies are racing to build lunar infrastructure. China, India, and other nations are landing probes and exploring untouched regions. Why? Because the moon may hold resources vital for the future, like water ice in its shadowy craters, which could be turned into breathable air and rocket fuel. Because it may become a gateway for deeper exploration. And because the moon is still our closest frontier. But amid the ambitions and blueprints, we must ask, will we treat the moon with respect? Will we honor its place in human imagination? Or will we turn it into just another pit stop for progress? This is a moment to choose, to remember that space isn't just a place. It's a reflection of how we see ourselves. The moon doesn't belong to any one country, culture, or corporation. It belongs to all of us, to every child who looks up in wonder, to every elder who tells stories of moonlight rituals, to every soul who has ever felt illuminated by its glow. It belongs to the dreamers. And perhaps, in the end, the moon is not a destination. It's a mirror, one that asks us not only what we want to build, but who we want to become. So tonight, when the world is quiet and the stars come out to play, step outside. Look up. Let the moon remind you that even in darkness, there is light. Even in stillness, there is movement. And even in cold, silent space, there is connection. And as we return to the moon's surface in our minds, we begin to notice its texture. Not just the visible craters and dusty plains, but the subtle stories buried beneath each ridge, each mark etched by time and collision. The moon, though seemingly barren, is a diary of cosmic history. Every impact crater is a preserved moment, a cosmic footprint from meteors that struck millions, even billions of years ago. On Earth, erosion and weather constantly rewrite the surface. But the moon has no wind, no rain, no oceans to wash its memory away. It remembers everything. Scientists call it a time capsule. The oldest parts of the lunar surface may be over 4.4 billion years old, nearly as old as the solar system itself. By studying it, we aren't just learning about the moon, we're uncovering our own planetary past. We find clues about how Earth formed, how water may have arrived, and even how life may have begun. The moon is like a silent witness, holding answers beneath its crust, waiting for us to ask the right questions. And perhaps the most enchanting question we ask the moon is, what does it feel like to stand there? Picture yourself on the lunar surface, light, gravity, and silence transformed. The Earth hangs in the sky like a bright, blue ornament. The sun casts sharp shadows across gray regolith. The silence is unlike anything you've known, utterly still, eerily eternal. With gravity only 1/6 that of Earth's, your body feels lighter, your steps more buoyant. And though you're encased in a bulky suit, insulated from the vacuum, your soul is bare, facing the universe with no filter. The Apollo astronauts described the experience not just in scientific terms, but spiritual ones. Buzz Aldrin called it magnificent desolation. Others spoke of an overwhelming sense of smallness, humility, and awe. The moon has a way of quieting the mind, sharpening the senses, and dissolving ego. It invites us to pause, to think differently, which brings us back to you. Where are you watching from tonight? What time is it in your world? Is the moon visible outside your window? Maybe it's rising just above the trees. Maybe it's hiding behind a city skyline. Or maybe it's just a feeling inside you. A longing to understand more, to feel more, to belong to something bigger. That longing is what brought humanity to the moon in the first place. And it's what will carry us forward, not just with rockets, but with reverence, with a sense of wonder that's older than language. So if you've stayed with us this far, know this: you are not just watching a video. You are part of a story that began when our ancestors first looked up in fear and fascination, and continues now as we seek not just to visit the moon, but to know it, to feel it, to walk with it, not above it. And maybe, just maybe, as we come to know the moon better, we'll come to know ourselves more deeply too. And as the lunar glow continues to cast its soft silver veil over the earth, we are left with a final, lingering thought. Perhaps the moon does more than just pull at our oceans. It pulls at our hearts too, tugs at something ancient within us, something primal, something that remembers what it means to wonder. Because the moon is not just a rock in the sky. It is a mirror, reflecting back the mystery of who we are. Have you ever stood beneath it and felt different? As if the noise of the world suddenly quieted, just for a moment, and you could hear your own thoughts more clearly? That's the moon's gentle power. Not loud, not forceful, just present. Always there, always watching, always whispering. And even now, as you sit wherever you are, be it a quiet bedroom, a busy city, a porch in the countryside, know this: you are part of this cosmic dance. You, the moon, the tides, the stardust, all of it moves together. All of it is connected. Every breath you take, every heartbeat, is synced, subtly, to the rhythm of a force 384,400 kilometers away. Ask yourself, when was the last time you looked up? Not just with your eyes, but with your soul? When was the last time you let yourself feel small? Not in a way that makes you powerless, but in a way that makes you part of something infinite. Because the moon reminds us that we don't need to understand everything to be moved by it. You don't need to be a scientist to feel the pull of the tides. You don't need a telescope to feel the glow of its light. You just need to be human, and open, and still. And so as we close this long and luminous journey through gravity, tides, history, emotion, and awe, we hope this has not just been an explanation, but an experience. That somewhere between the facts and the feelings, the science and the soul, you found a moment of connection. That's what we aim for here on the Mad Human channel. To stir the deep places, to awaken the old questions, to bring science not just to your mind, but to your heart. So tonight, before you sleep, take a moment. Open your window if you can. Let the moonlight touch your skin. Let it remind you that no matter where you are, no matter what you're going through, there's something vast and steady above you, guiding waves, lighting shadows, and gently reminding you. As we move deeper into this unfolding story of lunar wonder, let's step back in time, far before modern science gave us numbers and equations to understand the moon's pull. Let's return to a world of ancient humans, where the night sky was not something to glance at and ignore, but a sacred tapestry written with meaning. Civilizations all over the globe revered the moon as divine. The Sumerians called her Nana, the Mesopotamians revered Sin, and the Greeks gave her the name Selene. She was more than a light in the sky. She was a goddess, a guardian, a calendar, a keeper of balance. Entire agricultural cycles were shaped around her waxing and waning. Crops were planted according to her phases. Rituals were timed with her rhythms. Even sleep, sex, and birth were believed to align with her soft, glowing influence. The full moon symbolized fertility and power, while the new moon brought silence, mystery, and rest. It wasn't just mysticism. It was observation, passed down through centuries of watching, feeling, and adapting to her cycle. Think about it: before electricity, the moon was the only nightlight. When full, it lit entire villages, guided hunters, and marked times of gathering. When absent, people stayed close, huddled around fire, listened to stories, and turned inward. The moon wasn't just a body in the sky. It shaped the way humans lived, farmed, hunted, gathered, and even dreamed. And now, let's zoom forward to modern science. Because as poetic as it sounds, there's hard truth in what the ancients believed. The moon affects biology more than we realize. Let's take marine life, for instance. Have you ever heard of grunion fish? These small silvery creatures time their entire reproductive cycle around the tides. And those tides, of course, are timed by the moon. During a few magical nights each month, right after the highest spring tide caused by a full or new moon, grunions leap onto sandy beaches, wriggle up the shore, and spawn in the moonlight. It's a spectacle so precise you can set your watch by it. Coral reefs, too, sync their spawning events with the lunar calendar. Entire underwater ecosystems burst with life under the full moon's glow. But it's not just sea creatures. Birds migrate by moonlight. Insects mate by moonlight. Even certain trees release pollen in sync with the lunar phase. The moon is like a conductor of a silent symphony, and every living thing on Earth, whether consciously or unconsciously, is playing along. Let's pause and ask, have you noticed changes in your own body during different phases of the moon? Do you sleep worse during a full moon? Feel more energized? More anxious? More inspired? Scientists have studied this, yes, real peer-reviewed studies, and found that some people take longer to fall asleep and get less deep rest during a full moon. There's also emerging research suggesting a correlation between lunar phases and human hormones, particularly melatonin, the chemical that regulates our sleep cycle. That's not New Age fluff. That's neurobiology. Our ancestors weren't wrong to believe they were affected by the moon. They were simply more tuned into it than we are now. Ask yourself, have we, in our pursuit of artificial light and 24-hour productivity, lost touch with the natural rhythms that once grounded us?